Dr. Orathai Chureson currently serves as Director of Children's Ministries for the General Conference. Prior to working in the World Church, she served in the Southern Asia Pacific Division as the Children's and Family Ministries Director. With a background in education, she specializes in curriculum development, instruction, and teaching English to speakers of other language. Prior to her ministry call, Dr. Chureson held diverse roles including elementary teacher, tertiary instructor, clerk, librarian, and children's story translator. She actively contributed to leadership within local churches. Originally from Thailand, Dr. Chureson is married to Pastor Saw Samuel, Associate Secretary in the General Conference, and have two children, Amanda and Paul. Brothers and sisters, please welcome Dr. Orathai Chureson.
Good morning. That give me a lot of pressure because you clap before I perform. So I have to do well, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to. So please pray for me. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Thank you for being on time. And I know a lot of people are still coming, but we praise God for the number that we have right now. And so uh, we just want to, share something very important for our ministry to children, because children ministries covers a wide range of children. We have been focusing a lot on producing resources to reach children, and we think as we have a meeting with Pastor Van, Adventist Possibility Ministries, we think that it's time to intensify our efforts and combine our efforts and resources to reach children who are suffering and who are somewhat forgotten among us. And so reaching children from diverse cultures, we experience global crisis, and we know that this is probably, as far as, since I was born, this was the time that it was the most crucial times. And I do believe that we are called to this ministry at this time because there is a mission that we have to accomplish together. And that is to reach children who are vulnerable and orphans, and of course with special needs. So the global crisis is happening, and it will continue. We don't know how long, but the impact was so great. Just this morning, my associate, Nelde, she has actually shared with me the news just on February 20 that there's a statistic of children who are displaced, who have been displaced. The number is approximately 50 million children who have been displaced from their homes and their countries, and and so this number is probably even underestimated. We know that vulnerable children and orphans cover different situations where children coming from, because we all know that children are not just the orphans who are vulnerable, but at-risk children, all vulnerable children cover children who have been abused, who have been, marginalized in the society, who are street children who suffer so much from wars and conflicts and social unrest and political turmoils in different countries. Imagine a child growing up experiencing fear, insecurity, pressure. What would be their mental health status? So that's why we are so glad that this time we are not only to address the issues around, the ministry. Yes, of course, we also are so blessed with the OGC, Office of General Counsels, and also Adventist Risk Management, because as we were walking, listening to your discussion, we realized that you are actually really having something that our presenters during this global congress will address. And so we praise God for his leading, Pastor Van. And so Why do people move? I don't think that, the family, refugees and immigrants or children, they want to leave their homes. But because of the discriminations, because of the poverty, economic crisis, violence and threat, and war and conflicts, okay, they are seeking a place to feel safe. But unfortunately, based on the finding, we realize that children continue to suffer and feel isolated in a new place. And that's why I believe that as we unite our effort together, we can make a difference wherever we are. We might not be able to do a lot with the 50 million children who are being displaced right now, but we can do something that make a difference to a few people who are actually suffering, who are children. And so now, what is a culture? This is a big word. It make up our belief, our religions, our thought process and ideas, and our behavior. And sometimes these can even dictate our happiness and joy. Okay, the reason why we believe in God, it is really powerful. So each one come up with a different and unique journey and background, and so also children, each one of them. And so the culture is a manifestation of the combined thought process, ideas, language, customs, rituals, social conduct of a particular community of people. The knowledge, attitude, belief, goals, moral, and values shared by society is considered as a culture altogether. Let me tell you my experience. Okay, I serve in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Singapore. A little bit shocked in Singapore because people are so fast, walking fast like Dr. Linda, whoop, 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 going around. I have to run after her whenever we travel together. That's why she's really in good shape and very healthy. Praise God. And so a little shock there. And when I went to the Philippines, also slightly shocked because people are so happy. Even the typhoon just came last night. The next day, they celebrate fiesta. Very amazing, resilient spirit. So what happened is culture is really unique to a particular group of people or even each individual. We do have a different culture even within a family, right? From one to another, we have different patterns, of behavior as well. And so understanding the belief system is very helpful. So what is the belief system? A set of principles or tenets which together form the basis of a religion, philosophy, or moral code. It helps them interpret the world and act in a way that align with their belief. Now, you will notice when, the Southeast Asian people, when we pass by an elderly people, we will actually what? Bend, bow, okay, to show respect, whether we know you or not. But if you seem to be elderly than us, we do respect you. Okay? So don't feel offended, those who come from the West, that we think of you as an elderly person. You deserve the respect. That's why. Okay? So I also learned one thing when I went there that, it's not, nice to call someone older sister or uncle or grandpa because it's a crime. It's a crime, okay? And so what happened? But for us, this is an honor. It's a privilege. When someone addresses us, we can stand tall and feel respected, and that is an honor. And also, of course, sense of responsibility to be an example, a good example to the younger ones. And so that is our culture. And we share, that kind of values in Southeast Asia. And so understanding the belief system will help us also to understand each child, where they're coming from. Okay? And of course, keeping in mind that each one, even though under the same culture, they might also have some differences, that they have been brought up with. And so I want to show you my dad. When I was growing up, he was like training us like, oh, he said, in Asian culture or even in Thailand, men are special because they can become a monk. They can, they are stronger. So my dad always said, okay, you know what? You have to be, because he didn't have a son. So he tried to make us strong, okay? But he also wanted us to be wanted by the other family, being married to someone that appreciate us. And so he said, when you pound chili with the mortar and the pestle, you need to do it like you are a hardworking person. Bang, 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 bang. Like tum, 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 like this. Don't do like this. Tuk, 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 because that means lazy people, they do that. Okay? And so I said, well, how about if sometime tuk tuk and then tuk tuk like this, that? He said, oh, that's dangerous. He said, because that means the person is very emotional. And the temperament is, not fitting to be the spouse, to be the wife. And he was really teaching us that. And then we were growing up believing that is how people actually select, But later I found out he just wanted it to be done quickly and that's it. And so what happened, but children, whatever you tell them, they tend to believe, especially your relationship with them. If you have a loving, caring, wonderful relationship with a child, the child tend to be obedient to you. Of course, there will be outliers. We know that children are like unpredictable sometimes, but most of the time, they are most likely to be obedient and to really fully trust you. And so the belief system, this belief and values of your own may differ from those of the refugees, immigrant family, orphans, and vulnerable children under your care. Like in some part of the, in some part of the world, maybe in the Western world, you might be more individualistic. And in other parts, you might be, collectivist. I have to say, talking about my brothers from the Philippines, because Filipinos have a very collectivist mind. Compared to our countries, you're much more. And why I'm saying this, because you really sacrifice for the family. I have some friend who just once the salary is out, when I was working in Thailand, all the money sent to the Philippines. And she would, eat on instant noodles like that. And I said, why? You need to be healthy. Why? Because I have 6 brothers and sisters in school. So there's an extent that they sacrifice, there's a family value that is so strong. And that's why it dictates how they think, how they feel, and how they act, even though at their own sacrifices of happiness and joy. And so let us remember one thing. Okay, we learn about cultures a lot. We try to understand other cultures, and we want to reach our children with the understanding of the culture, of their culture. But most importantly, we also need to know, that there is a diverse cultural lens, okay? And so now let's ask a few questions and maybe, reason together. Do we realize that we often live in our own cultural lens? We make judgment, we pass on, like kind of analysis and reasoning based on our own experiences and our own, belief system. Okay, I went to States. It's a kind of cultural shock to me because, when people say, how do you do? How are you? In Asia, we really want to know that the person is well. We want to know. We really want to get to know you. And what happened in the building? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Like, you don't even look at each other's face, But that is actually a courtesy. Later on, I realized that, well, at least they say something. That means they care, Even though they don't stop to talk about. But at first, I was like, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. But that person is already past me, few steps away. And so it's a kind of cultural shock. And we have to know that we interpret people behavior, their speeches, their way, their personality based on our cultural lens, how we are brought up. And so because of we watch people from our lens, we tend to have cultural superiority mindset. It seems like our culture is better than others all the time. Most of the time, we feel that way because we are trained to think that way. Our brain has been wired in that way. And so cultural insensitivity is another problem that we have to check and watch ourselves. And non-cultural responsive approach to children. How do we minister to our children? Okay, based on our own understanding, that what they need, or based on what they actually need. Okay, and so the second cultural lens question is, how do we interact with people of other cultures and of differing faith? Now, in fact, we assume a lot. Okay, we assume a lot because we think that people who come to us, children who are non-believers, who don't know God, who don't worship God, they don't have any religion, they don't have any belief, or maybe they are actually from the secular world, but actually many of them, or most of them, I can say, do have their own belief. And it is really tricky when you try to reach people who have already their own belief, a firm foundation and a sense of obedience, like in Buddhist, context. Children are taught to be obedient, are taught to be, humble, gentle, slow to speech. And some people that really, in a culture where you want to recognize, you must speak up, you must show what you know, express what you feel is your right. But in our culture, in the Buddhist culture or in some Asian culture, we don't speak up because when we express without knowing, we express too soon, we don't cover every area, then we might be seen as less intelligent or less, sensitive. And so that's why these are something that we really need to watch out among children, how we can minister to them. So with that, we will be able to have cultural humility, be open, acknowledging the children's faith, their backgrounds, their challenges, their difficulties, their spiritual journey. And so cultural competency is to know the facts of other cultures. Of course, we will not be able to know everything because it takes a person a lifetime to learn or to mold a person, especially those who are much older. But even small kids, since they were born, they were taught that way. When I was growing up a Buddhist home, I always heard people, okay, be good boy. What is good? Good means being obedient, And so teaching to be obedient and expression of obedience and self-control is something is desirable in Buddhism. And so cultural awareness is being aware of the differences. I think this way. How about you? Do you think the way I do? So, and then why do you think the way you do? We express our appreciation. We'll be able to do so is when we understand the underlying reason. Because what the cover that we see might not speak well of the content in the book. Okay, and that's why the culture is that it's kind of in-depth, require in-depth understanding, but at the end it is very rewarding. And so cultural understanding and acceptance is one of the goals that we want, all of those who are working with children of varying culture to acquire and understand and be able to reach them and penetrate into their cultural world. Now it's not easy, of course. I do sense that, because when I was in Thailand, I was trained to be instructor to teach foreign teachers Thai cultures and language. And it's easy to teach people to, to be integrated or assimilated to your own culture. But to teach yourself to integrate and assimilate into other culture is really challenging, because we have the baggage that we carry. So the diverse cultural lens, question 3 is, do we seek to understand their spiritual journey? Okay. Assumption, we probably need to revise and rethink. Children often might be of other religious faith. They might be very committed to their faith, and they might be taught to obey to their parents. And if they don't, it would be very offending, and it would be considered as bad, as bad. And that's why we also need to understand the background. Sometimes we want kids, once we share the gospel, they are still internalizing or really cannot make a connection. And that is a challenge when we want to see things happening, quickly. We want to see the fruitful result of children being baptized, children expressing that they want to follow Jesus, while their heart is still, undecided. I actually, after my work, baptism, and then I started working, I got my niece to come and live with me. And of course, my intention was to teach her the Bible and lead her to God. But I said to her, you don't need to do to please me. But what I want you is to be open and learn about God. And you make your informed choice later. And so it takes, she asked some question, I talked to her, and then, she asked me one question that I remember. She said, Auntie, you believe in God. What if God isn't there and you make a mistake believing? And I said to her, I don't regret, because when you believe in God, it's the Bible teach all good things, all good things. But if you don't believe in God and God is real, you lose everything. You lose everything. And so with that, so one day after a few years, she was with me, then she got baptized. She got baptized. So praise God for that. But of course, children come with a different mindset as well. Some takes longer and some take less time. And so being exposed to abuses, traumas, neglect, and maltreatments can complicate more issues. It will be very bumpy for them before they reach the understanding of God and His presence. And so the diverse cultural lens, question number 4 is, do we intentionally plan on communicating the gospel more effectively? Okay, with the background of understanding of the cultural differences and diverse culture, varying faith, and even, coming from background, undesirable conditions or backgrounds that can, interfere so much of their mental well-being. So I have one statement that I found online, because somebody asked why we can't, educate people or pass on the knowledge of God or teach the people about God effectively. Why are some group of people so resilient and so, obstructive to the flow of the gospel? And so I checked this person. He's a Hindu. He said, we have Hinduism, a great diverse philosophy, rather than having to believe in only one God. We have strong religious societies. who are resistant to external belief system. We have Buddhism, which is very peaceful in nature. We have Sikhism and Jainism. And let me tell you, Jainism, when you talk about kindness, they even, they are so religious that even when they walk down the road, they want to make sure that they don't step on any ant. They want to be, so those who are rich, they will have the servant, sweeping their way so that all the ants and worms and living thing are, not under their feet. Because unintentionally stepping on those animals, tiny organism also is a sin to them. So such commitment. But what is really important for us, when we want to uplift, when people are so much of, so full of the fruit of the Spirit already, very kind, gentle, self-control, long-suffering, you name it. Buddhism have, Hinduism have. What is the difference? It's only what? God and His Word. That I personally find this is the one that we should pursue. Okay, it's not only the kindness we express to them, but as we do, we have to uphold the faith that we have in God and project them to the truth and understanding of the Bible. And so the diverse cultural lens question number 5, do we have a set of culturally responsive approaches to reach children? Are we culturally sensitive? Are we culturally competent and responsive? We ourselves need to find out. If we are ministering to the Buddhist, okay, how we have to understand the Eightfold Path and the concept of karma and the incarnation and state of nirvana. If we are ministering to the Hinduism, what are the concepts that we need? The endless cycle, okay, that they are focusing on, and the multiple gods that they have. Of course, we are going to reason with them, but we are not going to be offending, make offending statements or communicate with them in a way that we show disrespect to their faith, because that's going to shut everything down. It's something for us to learn, okay? As we said, we will learn first, then we will minister, okay? And so cultural intervention I see for us to minister to children of orphans and vulnerable, we also need to help them to be integrated into a new culture. Of course, they won't lose their identity, especially those who are younger. They will quickly learn. But we need to guide them also to understand why we do things the same way, the way we do. Like many children who ended up in the U.S., I talk because I try to travel to different places where there are refugees from Myanmar and also from other parts. And they struggle so much, especially parents. Children are less. And then there's also relationship crisis between children and parents because of their mindset are now different. They don't see the same thing. And so children, once they landed in the U.S. for the very first time, they need some kind of intervention, especially culturally. They need to be taught and learn what are the ways people don't, I personally realized once I go there, and I said to my son that, I feel like, I like to be friends with people. I like to smile. I come from the land of smiles, and I want to, maintain my uniqueness. And so my son said, Ma, he landed there in the U.S., 3 months before me. And he said, Ma, when people say hi, they don't really want to get to know you, he said. They just express their courtesy. They just want to say, and then they move on because they're busy people. You don't stop and talk to them. Hi, how are you? And try to get them to stop, and talk. He was the one teaching me. So children are really quick, faster than us. But yes, for children, as we minister to them, many of them, from one country to another, from one religion, they have to be among the other people who are not of the same religion. They feel uncomfortable, they feel lonely and isolated. We need a cultural intervention for them in the host culture and host country. And so my challenge for you is that create a set of cultural responsive approach and strategy. What can you do to help kids understand how to function in a new culture? Okay, especially those who move from one country, one culture to another. Okay, some of them across the continent. Many wanted to do the same way, but no. Like some parents from Asia, because they discipline kids with sticks. They also want to do in the U.S., but they got a call. The child called the police, and police come and then arrested them. And then they didn't understand why. This is my child, But in the U.S., it's a different law. And that's why when we do, it's not only about the cultural thing that we have to understand. It's also the law, the binding, and the sensitivity about what are the protocol, when we deal with children and caring for them. And you would be able to come up with a culturally responsive approach because you are from that culture, and you will be working with the children in your territory. So now I just want to share with you the 4 essentials in reaching children from diverse culture. Number 1, develop cultural competency and celebrate the beauty of other culture. Know our own culture, okay, and be open with other culture through interaction. Unless we interact with people, we will not understand. Jesus take time to interact with the woman at the well. He interact with the Zacchaeus. He interact with so many other people, the fishermen. And that's how they came to know God. So take time, get to know them, observe, and even sometimes imitate. Listen to a person's story as well, how their journey has been. Then we will be able to understand better. A child might be very, disrespectful, very much misbehaving child, but we do not know how far they have come, how bumpy their road, before they arrive at our hands, at our care. So it's very important. And then ask good and respectful question, because we learn about a person from where we are. We did not go to the other location and learn, or be immersed in that culture and learn. So we have a limited exposure to the culture of the child or of the family, immigrant or refugee family. And so we can ask good and respectful question, okay, about their culture, so that it will increase our cultural competence and develop further understanding and appreciation. And so people do things the way they do, and what if the norm are broken with the intention of seeking to learn and grow, okay? We might also learn to probably do something out of our comfort zone, okay, which we feel safe, and step out and be adventurous. One thing that I learned so much how to eat and appreciate all kind of food, and that's not very good for me because I enjoy most of the places. I enjoy the food, more when it's spicy, of course. And so it is something, that we will learn to appreciate, and then we get to try to understand. Some people say, yike, durian is so smelly, but a year later they love it because they keep eating, they keep trying. Yes, and that's true. In many times, once we are in other person's shoe, then we'll be able to appreciate and see things differently. Now, proclaim the gospel clearly. Okay? Respond to their story with the gospel. Now, when we talk about responding with the gospel, we know that children might not be able to understand or make sense of the trials, the pain and the suffering and the torture that they experienced in the past. But help them to see where they are currently, and express, show them that the happiness, the eternal happiness is only found in God. Okay, life is full of challenges in different ways. Of course, some face more challenges than others, but we can always choose to be happy with God's help. And so, contextualize the gospel message, communicate the gospel in a way that makes sense by helping people to look through the lenses of their own worldview to understand the truth. Okay, we were having a training for Alive in Jesus, which is a new Sabbath school curriculum for children. And there are some demonstrations that suggest that baking the biscuit. In Asia, we don't bake, we steam. Okay? So instead of baking, we steam the bun, And that's what we encourage all children ministry leaders to always adapt, to always adjust, to see, contextualize, your approach to reach children. And so a case study, his name is Bilay. That picture is not him, but that is from Canva. So what happened? I knew Bilay about 10 years ago. This boy, and I learned about his life further than that because he was actually living in a current village between Myanmar and Thailand border. And because of the internal conflicts and civil war unrest in Myanmar for a long, long time, sometime the soldier from the government came and then burned the houses, killed the people, and it was a massacre. He was in the middle of that, but he was not only facing that challenge, he was born kind of crippled. He could not walk, so he has to use his arm and go like this. And so when the military came, everyone ran away except him because he couldn't run. So he just, lie down and pretend that he was dead. And so when the soldier came, they burned all the houses and then shoot whoever was still alive except him because he was, trying to pretend he was dead. And then after everything was silent, all his family members were, dead. And so slowly at night, he, kind of like moved with his hand and then crossed the mountains to Thailand side. And that takes, quite a few days. And so when he came, he met a lady. Some of you know Pastor Van, Catherine. Yeah, Momo Cat. Her name is like Mother Cat, She's not really, a cat, but someone who named Cat. So they call Momo Cat. And so she picked him up, and help him. And then help him, educate him. And finally, he's serving now. Some of you might have met him also, those who visited, Thailand, that he's a pastor. He's a pastor, right? Dr. Surapi had met him. This story is really inspiring. It's really a very unique needs, special needs, vulnerable, at risk, everything, clustered around his life. But he thrived. He's happily sharing the gospel. He happily pastoring a church in Thailand. And he's happily married to a very beautiful young lady and had 2 children. You know, when a person that kind of life experience hardships and were given an opportunity to shine, imagine the sense of gratitude to God and the people around him. The possibility ministry, the sense of gratitude. You know, I believe everyone, those who are church leaders, I know that you're grateful to God for who he is. And that's why you continue to serve purposefully. And so children, even vulnerable, at risk, okay, challenged, and very much marginalized, but once given opportunity, I believe with God's help, they will shine. And so 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2 to 3, be the shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being example to the flocks. It's really beautiful text. And always, as we minister to children, always remember their continuing journey. Even though they are with us, you might say, oh, now you're saved. God has saved you. You are now in a safe place. They continue to struggle. They continue to experience pain from the past. And they might also continue to experience abuses, discrimination, mental challenges. And these are things we need to consider when we continue to minister. And so the resettlement, the isolation, weight of traumas upon their shoulder, stressors, and that cause mental health, adjustment to a new setting, learning a new language, being with different people instead of their own loved ones and their family, missing their loved one who had died during war and conflicts, being separated from someone whom they love so much. These are still continuing traumas that they will still experience. And that's why children, when they experience such, circumstances, they might tend to misbehave. They might tend to be very difficult. They might tend to be unresponsive to the gospel. And so the Bible, Matthew chapter 19, verse 14 says, Jesus said, let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. There's something we learned as this morning Elder Evans has shared with us. It's a test of character to all of us. Those who come to us under our care, they are not burdened. They are a blessing to us because we are proving ourselves to be a good steward, to be a faithful servant of God, and to be a kind and generous to other fellow human beings, to our neighbors. And so sharing the gospel with cultural sensitivity, reaching orphans and vulnerable children of all culture is to love them unconditionally. Help them to feel accepted. Help them to feel valued. And fulfill their emotional needs, psychological needs, physical needs. And then you teach them with the gospel. You share what makes sense to them. Address their issues. And then lead them with your example as God has commanded us. And so children ministry mission and strategies. The mission of us is to nurture children into a loving and serving relationship with Jesus. And the strategies, what we can do is through our grace-oriented nature of ministry, inclusive ministry. This is already, on the website. Thank you, Dr. Linda, for casting this vision, and we are following and taking it as into our hearts. Leadership, empowering, service-oriented. We serve humanity. Cooperative, we collaborate with, possibility ministry, youth ministry, so many other ministry, so that they can share funds to us. Yeah, yeah. Yes, I have to be honest, okay? And so cooperative, safe, okay, with the OGC and Adventist Risk Management, we need their missional support and also evangelistic in nature. We want to evangelize. We want to pass on the gospel truth to all children whom we can come into contact with. And this would be something that we would like to do together, and we ask for your partnership. Go ye therefore, make disciples of all nations, of all children. May God bless each one of us. Amen.